Hi, I'm Pippa, reporting for WORLDwrite. The 29th of March 2019 was the date the UK was due to leave the EU, but this hasn't happened.
Yet 17.4 million people, the largest vote in Britain's history, voted Brexit. Are people worried that democracy is being denied? I'm here in Epping, in Essex, to find out. How did you vote?
Leave.
And why is that?
We couldn't just go on being organised by an unelected body, basically.
So are you disappointed in the way that the government is handling Brexit?
They're not handling it at all. It's an utter disgrace. I could do better myself. In fact, if a couple of car dealers had gone over there, they'd have fixed it the first day.
So do you feel represented by the current parliament?
No, not at all. They're not following their individual constituency wishes. The majority of them haven't followed it. They've got no get up and go. In fact, they're the ones that should be getting and going.
And how do you feel about the idea of a second referendum?
Would you ever suggest to me we should run the Olympics again because we don't like the Olympics or the FA Cup? Absolutely ridiculous. There'd be rioting in the streets of such a suggestion.
So do you think that Brexit will actually ever happen?
Well, I don't see how they can go. They're trying to fudge it and make it as weak as possible, but they should go by the will of the people, and I would expect them to, because I can see people, even I would march in the streets, and I hate exercise, but I would go out for that.
I voted to remain.
How do you feel about the current delays on Brexit?
I think we just ought to get out and get on with it. There was more leavers than remainers in the vote, wasn't there? So, members of Parliament should sort of adhere to that and get on with it and get out.
So what do you think about a second referendum, and do you think there should be one or there shouldn't?
No, there shouldn't be a second referendum. A referendum, it was 52% to leave, so they had the majority, so that should, they should go with that.
Well, I'd like us to leave with a clean break. That's what I voted for, and I think the majority of voters did exactly that, and the majority of voters in this constituency, and that decision has been completely betrayed and ignored.
Do you think democracy has been denied?
I think that absolutely, yes. It's been denied by the Prime Minister, by Parliament in general, absolutely, and it disgusts me. I think anyone who betrayed the result of the referendum should be deselected, yes. Well, I've written repeatedly to both my MP and the Prime Minister. I've had a response from the MP. Initially, she said she agreed with every word I said, but that seems to be of little value because nothing has changed. I don't think any future election on that will have any effect because the result will be denied again if it doesn't go the way the Prime Minister and the party and Parliament. And Parliament's never going to agree. So it's going to be a complete waste of time, just like the referendum was.
So how do you feel about the current delays on Brexit? What do you think this will mean for democracy?
It's just taking a mockery out of our right to vote. Democracy itself, they're just ignoring us. They're not interested in us.
Okay, and as a leaver, do you feel represented by the current Parliament?
No. Well, the reason why I don't feel we're getting represented is because we've asked to leave. And all they seem to do is give us an excuse not to leave. They're not doing what we're asking as a people to do. We want to leave. Let's just leave. We don't need all this rubbish about deals and God knows what else, or another delay until I don't know when. I think they're taking a mickey out of democracy itself. We've asked to leave, they're delaying it. We should have been out ages ago. We're still pontificating what to do. So no, I won't vote again.
I voted to stay because I wasn't too sure, but I felt better the devil we knew than the devil we don't. Someone's got to say, hey, it's not what I really want, but let's go for it, because that's what was decided in the original vote.
I did vote, and I voted to remain.
Okay, and as a Remainer, how do you feel about the current delays on Brexit?
It's a difficult question, really. I don't think it's very good because, obviously, the majority of voters, not the majority of the UK people, wants to leave the EU, and I sort of respect that decision. It doesn't make the UK government look very good that it's taken this time. I don't really think UK politicians have really been focused on what the people want. I think they've been more focused on their careers, and I think that's sort of it's sort of made the whole sort of deal really difficult.
Yes, I voted out on the reason being that David Cameron kept going to the EU, and each time he asked for something he was just sent packing each time, and it was the final straw, and I've just had enough of the EU.
And do you have any particular view on if our democracy is being denied, because it's been, all the way to Halloween now?
I'm strongly against it. We should have been out now, and completely out, even with a no deal out. I'm a firm believer out means out. And it's the politicians that have let us down badly on both sides of the parties. And don't get me wrong, I feel as though whoever you'd put in charge, whether it be Theresa May or anyone else, they would have been in the same position, because you have so many politicians that can't agree, which is the normal case. And I think it should have been down to business people to get us out of this, and not politicians.
I voted to leave.
So how do you feel about the current Brexit delays?
I'm sick and tired of listening to it and hearing about it, and I just wish the whole thing would get sorted out.
Do you think we will ever leave the EU?
Unfortunately, the way it's going, I more and more think that it won't, but hopefully it will.
So if we didn't leave the EU, what would that mean for our democracy?
I think it would be terrible. I think people will lose all faith in Parliament, and very tempting not to bother to vote again. But equally, if you think the party that you don't want to be in power would get into power if you didn't use your vote, then in the end you've got to use it, whether or not you think it's a waste of time.
I was just turned 18 at the time, so it was my first big vote, and I voted to remain, just simply because I thought there is problems with the EU, but it might be better to change it from inside rather than leaving and not being able to really have a say anymore. Do you feel we are being denied our democracy because it's being moved so much? I feel like it does affect democracy, as the majority did vote to leave, so if we go back on that, what does that mean for the future? Is there going to be trust in how we carry out elections in the future? But in general, it's just a big confusion and a mess, and it would just be clear if we had a set plan, we know what we're going to do, and we leave really in the end.
We want Brexit and it shouldn't be delayed.
Did you vote in the EU referendum?
No, because I thought the quality of the politics behind the referendum was absolutely appalling from both camps, both the stay and leave campaigns. I thought the quality was really, really bad, and I'm not going to endorse with my vote bad politics. I'm finding that British politics in a whole all it's oozing is ineptitude, and quite frankly, I think British politics at the moment, they're really going to suffer at the next election with a really poor turnout, because they're putting people off in such a big way.
So do you think that we should have left on the 29th of March without a deal?
I would come out, but it would be coming out uncomfortably without a deal. I wouldn't feel great about it. But let's just say, with all the options that we have on the table, that it's no good opting for the least poor one. I see the EU as being no better than a protection racket, quite frankly, and I feel that all the options on the table, they're never going to give us anything good.
It's the politicians that haven't really listened to the people that voted. And I just think they're there to line their pockets, to be quite honest. They're delaying it, and it's all, I find that it's all for a financial reason. They're not even listening to the voters.
So do you think that we will ever leave the EU?
Yes. Otherwise, I feel that the government would have undermined the people that voted to come out. So, yes, I do believe we will come out eventually, after a hard slog.
So, how did you vote in 2016?
I voted Remain.
Okay. And do you think this whole controversy going backwards and forwards, do you think it's a denial of our democracy?
Yes, I do. If I look back now, I'd have rather voted leave, because I'm really disappointed we haven't left. Because that's what people voted for, not necessarily me, but 17 million voted for it, and I think we should have done it.
Yeah, I voted to remain.
So how do you feel that the government has been handling Brexit currently?
I think that the people that have been left behind aren't the ones who were rabidly for it in the first place, and everyone's been running away. Like David Cameron got us into it in the first place. He was the first to run away, and they just do not have a clue at the moment. I don't think there's anywhere to go.
So if we do end up staying in the EU, what does that say about democracy?
Ultimately, over the long term, I think the democracy is, hard to say, has actually held up. In the past, we've avoided as a country referendums because we generally have faith in our members of parliament that we can entrust them to come up with the best decisions, even if they're not necessarily what some people want, but they do what's best for the country. With the referendum, there was such a one-sided vote on there, and there was so many lies told in advance of the referendum that there's also been investigation into criminal funding of the campaigns, which is just not being addressed by Parliament at the moment, and I don't think they want to. They don't want to come face to face with what went on in the campaign. And we've seen how social media has affected it. There's people saying that things came out of Russian playbooks, which you can be a conspiracy theorist, maybe see in due time how much of that turns out to be true, but if we've left, and then that'll be our place in Europe ruined for a whole generation or more.
They don't know what they're doing, and we should have left ages ago. But now it's confusing now, so no one knows what's going to happen. So, we voted to leave, and we should have just left, and sorted out the problems later on. I'm sure they'll iron themselves out eventually.
I'm just fed up with what's been going on because it's taking too long and they've decided and done nothing. Surely they should have made their minds up and done something by now. But they don't seem to have. Is that my bus?